Hello, and welcome to our YPO Impact in Action podcast, the podcast of the Social Impact Network. We'll use this podcast for YPO social impact leaders to introduce their social impact projects, their lessons learned along the way, and ways that other YPOers can get involved.
Today, we have the pleasure of having DeEtta Jones with us. And I'm not going to give a long introduction to DeEtta's work or her background because DeEtta's entire work has been in social impact throughout her career. So for that, I'm going to turn over to DeEtta right away.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Yes, I have. I've spent the entirety of my career focusing on social impact. I started off, early on as kind of a community activist working for kind of opportunities to educate and engage and even change policies that allowed for people from marginalized groups to have full protection, to have the kind of freedoms from violence and discrimination necessary in public accommodation and housing and employment. And then over the course of my career, have been continuing on that path, especially focusing on workplace experiences. How is it that we really democratize learning? How is it that we really pour into people in our organizations that will allow them to have the tools, the contemporary language and understanding, and also be able to kind of navigate changing societal and workplace dynamics? And so the project that I've been working on, especially over the last several years, is CultureRoad. And CultureRoad is, I call it a next generation HR SaaS platform that beautifully and kind of naturally builds on the career path that I've always had. And it's really about being able to make sure that there is an opportunity for people to have ongoing learning and development, ongoing coaching, support, and also a community of practice with other peers, but also guided by expert facilitators that allows for them to have the community necessary for thriving workplaces, but also for thriving employees and citizens in a very quickly changing world.
Can you take a step back from that and say, what exactly is the project? So it's HR SaaS platform, but if I'm using it, what is it going to do? Like, what's different for my company than another HR SaaS platform? What is it that stands out?
So this CultureRoad is specifically kind of a unique blend of learning and development with community. There are other HR SaaS platforms that focus on HR-ish kinds of things, compensation, time and reporting, assessment. This is really about culture. And the way that culture works is that it's a combination of kind of what we know anchored to what we value, and then how we put what we know and what we value into practice behaviorally in a community. How do we collectively show up in a space? And so what CultureRoad does is it allows for us to have an ongoing place to think about, but also to bring all of us into the fold about who are we? What does that look like behaviorally? What are some of the tools and skills necessary in order to exemplify who it is that we are and what it is that we believe in behaviorally? And then how do we assess that and then implement it inside of our organization in ways that allow us to have impact, right? And so the thing about CultureRoad that's different than other HR SaaS is that it really is meant to democratize the learning and development and the community engagement experience. Oftentimes in most organizations, the people who have access to these sorts of developmental experiences are either managers or senior leaders, right? But meanwhile, there are a lot of other people that actually make our organizations work. And the connection between kind of what we're envisioning and the planning that we're making and the goals that we're setting and the actual day-to-day work gets lost, and it actually grows larger over time, especially in hybrid work environments, especially with all this kind of societal churn that's happening. People start to siloize themselves. And so the disconnect is getting greater and greater. And so what this is an opportunity to bring people together, literally, inside of an organization. It's not just a silo for your organization to connect and say, who are we proactively and how do we show up and how do we nurture the things that we are and that we want to be? But it's also an opportunity to get together with other kind of like-minded people in other aligned values, aligned organizations in the ways that create these virtuous experiences
So your people are being connected to other users of this network outside of their own company, or they can have access to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So there are people from a huge variety of different organizations currently inside of Culture Road. So we have individual opportunities for individual organizations to come together and cultivate and nurture their own organizational culture related to their own understanding, norms, practices, values, goals, and ability to measure. But there's also a lot of other people that are engaging in ways that allows for just a real wonderful practice of healthy communication across, right? In a way that doesn't happen in a lot of other platforms right now, where instead people are kind of siloizing. This is really about facilitating exchange and facilitating this incredibly important and almost kind of going out of style dialogue that's so necessary for us to continue to grow as humans.
And going back a step as well, you talked about how so much of the training right now of learning development goes to our senior executives, to our managers, and less focus or less attention to lower level employees. I wonder, do you see this as also addressing the issue of maybe a CEO thinks he or she understands what's going on in their company, but this gives them a better idea of the values of their employees, their team workers, of what's happening. So for our fellow YPO members, they can get a better idea of what's happening in their company and what people throughout their organization are thinking or how they're feeling.
Absolutely. And that's 100% what's happening is we use a variety of different survey methodologies to be able to hear from people real time. And so instead of waiting for, the annual or every 2 years kind of climate survey that just kind of dips into an organization and says, here's where we are today. And then we spend the next year or 2 years trying to repair those couple of things. Instead, we have real time analytics that says, here's what people are feeling today. Here are a couple of opportunities for thinking about how it is that you nurture kind of internal communication around these themes. Here's what people are saying they want or need more of in real time. So what it allows for is real-time data-driven decision making by decision makers. And it also allows for us to be able to give measurement and impact to leaders who oftentimes have no way of knowing how their learning and development or their coaching or their organizational development dollars are actually turning into something that is impacting ROI. This is hopefully closing that gap.
Wow, that's really great. I can imagine there's a lot of lessons learned in building this system, especially going from being someone who's worked more with people throughout to building this HR SaaS startup. Like, what were some of the lessons you learned along the way? Well, whether it's in approaching your new clients and building this new technology, what do you think were the most important lessons that other YPOers could learn from?
It's interesting because it is the technology and all of that and the business pieces are incredibly important. And I, don't have to tell other YPOers about how difficult those things are and all the lessons there. But the more important part that is related to impact and social impact, and I think a lot of us will resonate with this, it's much easier to make the case to fix something that is broken rather than to kind of proactively pause and say, wait a minute, it doesn't look like we're going in the direction that we want to be in, but it's not so painful that we're actually willing to stop and just say, let's pause before we keep going because we're going down a slippery slope. So for me, the most important lesson is that culture is something that needs constant tending and it needs intentional interaction from all of us, every single one of us. And for me, this is a huge social impact issue, right? That culture is something that all of us either participate in and or are impacted by. And when culture changes, it has impacts sometimes that are far beyond something that we're going to be able to readjust from quickly. And so for us to just constantly think of ourselves as stewards of our culture, to think of ourselves as proactively nurturing the things that we want to see more of and not just running from the things that are either painful or that require quick fixes is the most important takeaway message for me and hopefully for some of my other colleagues.
And for those who are interested in learning more about this or getting involved with this, I mean, this is a for-profit piece of software that you've built or a community that you've built. So would people search for CultureRoad and sign up to register? Should other YP members contact you directly? If you want to learn more, if you want to get involved, learn more about
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Our website is cultureroad, one word.com, cultureroad.com. But also, I would love to have any conversations with people about, how is it that we have the support needed to create more of what we want in our workplaces. There's a lot of stuff happening in the entire world, but given the amount of time that we spend in our workplaces, how is it that we kind of carve out the experience that we want more of and also align those with our values that will help our businesses do better, but also help the people that we count on every single day to really thrive and have the kind of supporting ecosystem that they need. So I'm also more than happy to connect with anyone to share a little bit more about opportunities for collaboration.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being with us today. We'll put the link to the CultureRoad as well in the show notes, so that will be easily findable as well. But thank you again for being on today.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.